Hi there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm H2Ho, the H stands for Harley, and I'm here with the Kite Trust today to speak to you guys about Herstory, specifically the Herstory of drag and where it all came from. So, let's get on with it then. So, Japan in 1603, a new form of art came about of theater called kabuki, and it was an all-female form of art. And this was actually called Onna kabuki, which means women's kabuki. In 1629, though, there was concerns about the corrupting influence of these women on people like samurai, who were supposed to be, too good to fall prey to these kinds of things. And so therefore women, unfortunately, again, as we see no matter where in the world, it just happens anyway, women were banned from performing in theater. So males would then play female roles. Now kabuki was concentrated or only allowed to be performed in the ukiyo, which was the red light district of Edo. And this was so that it could be regulated. Female roles that were at this point now played by young boys actually ended up being so that samurai would still find them very attractive, and so a lot of these young boys would actually still end up prostituting themselves with the samurai. And this really upset the shogun, who was the leader of the country, and so he tried to regulate that by them putting a lot of other restrictions. So for example, in 1642, men playing women's roles was outlawed. In 1648, homosexuality itself was outlawed. And in 1652, all young male actors were outlawed, so they couldn't do Onna kabuki anymore. Basically nobody could. Women couldn't, men couldn't, young boys couldn't. So from that point on, men's kabuki was formed, and all the actors had to be fully grown men. They had to make sure that they wouldn't make themselves attractive to samurai, and to do that, laws required them to shave their forehead and also to basically just do anything except make themselves attractive. So that was like the one thing. And sexy scenes also were not allowed. So nothing sexual, nothing that would turn on the samurai, because apparently it was everyone else's fault and not the samurais, but theater and actors had to suffer, right? Kabuki actors at the time lived in kabuki families because, again, this sort of social segregation between different classes. And so you were born into a kabuki family, you trained your whole life to be in kabuki, and you could only really marry into other kabuki families. But these laws also required them to live near the stages where they performed. And at the same time, in a weird way, they were social outcasts, so they were kind of on the lower tier of society, but they were like the rock stars of their time, right? 'Cause you can imagine that, they played in these plays, they were like super cool actors, they played cool roles, people were fans of them, people lived for gossip about their lives, and it was very exciting. In particular, the actors who were very well liked were the men who would play female roles, and they were called onagata. And actually, a lot of the times, they would actually even live as women off of the stage too. So this is a really good example of, someone who essentially would then put on this gender on stage so often, and they method acted, so to speak, by living as women outside of the stage as well. But at the end of the day, these basically could have just been trans women, is what we would call them today. Just people that wanted to live as women, and they were on and off stage, but this was, the culture of the time. Again, but because of all the restrictions that the shogun put on the way that acting had to be done so as to not be too provocative or too sexy, you could actually be jailed if your outfits on stage looked too nice. So again, you had to draw this really fine line. Next, we move on to China. And China has this really beautiful form of theater called Peking opera, or Beijing opera. And in around 1772, again, women were outlawed from taking stage. That's literally just the common thread here. There's theater, women are in theater, then they're not allowed to be, so then men have to play women. You see it again and again. But this didn't stop men from taking on these iconic female roles in theater and being really good at them. Actors that were men playing the role of women were called dan, which just means a male playing a female role. And these roles actually were very revered for the fact that they were very skillful, and Beijing opera in general is just so skillful. There's so much intricacy in it. You should go look it up. It's very beautiful. But again, it took so much skill and so much sort of elegance to be one of these good performers, being a dan, that it was a very quite a revered role. For example, Mei Lanfang was a very internationally famous dan. She popularized Peking opera outside of China in the US.